A vignette is a darkening of the edges of an image, typically created from when a lens isn't very good. But in this project that we're doing with the Holga, to mimic the look of a Holga camera, that lens isn't very good. So we're going to create a vignette. I find it often creates a look where the edges, if it's just very subtle, makes the edges feel a little bit more finished and adds something very subtle to your image that you might really like. So it's a nice skill to be able to add to certain images as you're editing. So we're going to start with this landscape for my vignette. And what we're going to do is we're going to do it with an adjustment layer. So over here I can choose any of these adjustment layers. Typically the ones on top are easiest. I prefer just to use here the exposure layer. Now what happens when I click on this adjustment layer is I'm given the option here to alter the exposure of my image. I can do it with the curves or brightness and contrast. I'm going to darken my edges, or actually darken my entire image. But what you see here is this white rectangle, and that represents this screen here, this shape of my image canvas. So this is called a layer mask, and I'm highlighted here. If I'm highlighted on this section, now I can alter my exposure. This way of editing in layer masks gives us great flexibility, and hopefully you'll start to see the reasons why. So I'm going to close that to the side here, and I'm going to be highlighted here on the layer mask. Notice when I do that, when I click onto that, if I have colors selected over here, when I select the layer mask, it automatically turns to black and white because we paint on this mask to paint where we want the effect of this layer to apply to the parts of the image below it. Hopefully by demonstrating you'll see. So I have black. I'm going to paint black on this white mask. Black turns off the effect. White allows the effect to go through. I'm going to choose a very large brush. Bigger than that. Too big. That's pretty good. And I want my hardness to be 0 so that it's very soft. And if I click in the middle of my image, you can see over here a little black fuzzy dot showed up, and now that part of my image is lighter. And I'm going to create a vignette by painting a black mask in the white adjustment layer of exposure that I applied. So I'm creating this white part that allows these the white edges here allow for the darkness to be applied to it. So I can see it if you turn it off. When I turn it on, you can see just the shape of where the white is in the mask is what comes through. If that's too strong, I always have the opacity to be able to soften that as well. I can also go back into this adjustment as well and play with how light or dark I want my vignette. The best vignettes are very subtle that you don't actually notice they're there, and they just add a bit of a finish darkening to your edges. So here's my before and my after, and I would save my before and after versions onto a sheet and upload that for the Photoshop Skills exercise assignment. The vignette becomes part of our Army Man project later on, so it's a good skill to know, but it also just is a nice option when you're editing your photos later on.